On this episode of Locked On Lightning, we're discussing Jon Cooper's post-game press conference from last night. We also talk about what do the Lightning do going forward as they try to recollect, re-prepare, as they will get 2 straight games against the Washington Capitals. All that more, but first, let's play that music.
You're Locked On Lightning, your daily podcast on the Tampa Bay Lightning. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome to another episode of Locked On Lightning, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Adam Danker. I just want to thank all of you for making us your first listen of the day. On this episode of Locked On Lightning, we're just going to go really in-depth or really just talk about Jon Cooper's post-game comments from last night, as well as moving forward and looking at what the Lightning can do to really kind of recollect themselves after what was really a very disappointing loss. Like I said on last night's episode, that the Lightning had a prime chance going into this game to beat a very decently offensively prowess Arsenal team, I guess. I mean, really, I didn't go and before we get into Cooper's comments, I just want to say real quick is that I failed to mention the whole Evander Kane thing. Him leaving the game due to the incident between him and Maroon, and it was just a very not a good situation, especially for a player moving off the ice with that kind of injury. And it seems as though everything is going to work out for the best for him. And regardless of how you feel about Evander Kane, you never want to see an opposing team player or any player for that matter get injured like that, especially where in a situation that could be potentially career ending or life threatening. But yeah, I mean, the Lightning were in a good position last night after he left, because now after he left the game, because they had 10 forwards and they just still did not capitalize. And then you just pile everything else on from what we spoke about last night onto that. And yeah, it was just not a good loss. I mean, there's very few things, very few games in which the Lightning have a good loss, or a team has a good loss, but we've seen quite a few of those this season. But yeah, going and looking at what Jon Cooper's comments were last night, he was asked, just based off, first off, what was his thoughts, especially on the special teams. And he said it plain and simple that they need to work on stuff, allowing the shorthanded goal. That's not really ideal. And I'm very much paraphrasing. So, if you want to go back and listen to the press conference with Cooper, go ahead and do that. It was interesting. I wasn't only listening to what he said, and Jon Cooper is a lawyer. He's like a legitimate lawyer. That's what he went to school for. So, he knows how to handle himself in these situations, and he knows how to give you just enough without giving a lot up. And I criticized him and really just the whole team last night, really, because I feel like their body language in situations like this, and just after losses in games where everybody knows they should have had one, they missed an opportunity, and I feel like I just want to see some more emotion out of this team, not in the players that you really only see true emotion out, frustration. And maybe sometimes they kind of get a little too carried away. Is the guy who I'm really thinking about is Nikita Kucherov. He plays clearly with his. There's times where he really goes out there and you could see he's wearing his heart on his sleeve, and then there's other times where he's just, you don't know what he's thinking. He's just kind of floating out there, and just instead of being aggressive and going out there and playing his game, he's kind of waiting for the game to come to him. But I thought, for everything I said last night, and then watching the Cooper press conference just a few moments ago before recording this, I don't really have a problem with what he said. Obviously, going into it, I didn't want to be too critical. I wanted to give the guy a chance. And, he said all the right things. He said what you're supposed to say in that situation as a coach. You're supposed to say, We're going to work on things. Obviously, the power play and the special teams, and just the special teams in general. That being the PK as well, is not where it's supposed to be. And I threw up that stat last night that the Lightning are actually at the rate they're going. I think I don't remember the exact phrasing of it. If go ahead and listen to last night's episode real quick, but basically the Lightning are on track to give up the most power play goals. I think that was the stat there, and it's by like they're about to beat last year's records, and by probably I think it's like 200, something like that, or something in that ballpark. I forgot. Maybe it's chances actually, but anyway, the what I'm trying to get at is that Jon Cooper, it's one thing to say something like that and be like, we got to work on things. We have a couple of days in practice to work on things. We didn't play well. We didn't do this. We didn't do that. Um, and, it seemed as though, I don't know who asked them the question about Evander Kane and, how hard was it trying to get the team refocused after that. Which I get you have to ask that question, but at the same time, it's like, you're the Oilers were playing the same game you were. Okay, that was their teammate. If you're gonna say that Jon Cooper or excuse me, the Tampa Bay Lightning were rattled by Evander Kane getting hurt the way he did, uh, the team that he is on didn't seem very rattled about it, and did a good job kind of just getting themselves back into the game. And it was kind of hinted at early on in in the presser that they got off to a slow start, and that's really what happens, and that's the the starting point for every Lightning loss is that this team in games which they're at home. Okay, I feel like most and I know I'm jumping all over the place now, and there's a lot to dissect not only from the Cooper press conference and just it opens up a lot of doors as to what could be spoken about and what needs to be done with this team. And the reason why I'm jumping all over the place is because Cooper says we need to be better, we need to work on things. Right, we need to work on everything. And it's one thing to say that, but it's another to actually go to practice, do that, and then show it in the next game. And you have two games coming up against the Washington Capitals, who I think are one of the older teams in the NHL, is a team who's not particularly good, in my opinion. But if the Lightning go out, they play the way they did against Edmonton. I spoke about it that you didn't want Leon Draisaitl and Connor McDavid to beat you on certain chances, especially odd man chances, and that really the Lightning allowed that to happen. They didn't play a disciplined game, and you gave Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl 4 chances to beat you, and they beat you twice. And really, if the Lightning go out and don't play the way they're supposed to play over the next couple of games, now we're just going to start talking about Alexander Ovechkin beating you, because we all know how great of a scorer he is. And so the Lightning really need to buckle down over the next couple of days. We need to see some actual legitimate growth over the next couple of games. I would not be surprised if we see Zach Bogosian maybe on the second part of that Capitals mini series, if you want to call it that. But just to round things out, I think what Cooper said at the press conference wasn't surprising. It wasn't completely out of the box either. It's like I said, it's we could talk and talk and talk until the cows come home, but at the end of the day, we need to see action from this team, and we have yet to see not only action and growth, but we haven't seen it consistently. So the team needs to improve. Right now, they're sitting outside of the third spot in the Atlantic Division. They're trailing Toronto by 2 points, and they're tied with Florida. And Buffalo is right there. You know what? Listen, like a lot of these teams, except for maybe Ottawa, who has just gotten off to a brutal start to start the season, and it definitely makes that win against them a lot. a lot more bad looking now. But the Atlantic Division, as of right now, it's close. And yeah, maybe when we go into January, it might be a different story. But this is where you accumulate those points. This is where you kind of build some distance between yourself and these other teams. And the Lightning need to start doing that now, or they're going to find themselves in a potentially precarious situation down the road. So we'll talk about what the Lightning need to do, maybe personnel wise. Maybe it's time to shake things up, namely the lines. Is Nick Pervix playing himself into a first line spot now? We'll talk about that as well. But first, I'm going to talk about this episode's sponsor. And this is a product I literally use every day. I started taking this because, I wanted to feel better. I've had some stomach issues in the past, and it had a lot to do with diet. And so I've been starting to take Athletic Greens. Athletic Greens is, I love this. I mean, I use it at the minute I get up in the morning. I just use I use one scoop with water and I'm ready to go. The energy it gives me is that of maybe three coffees at that point. And I also wanted to improve my gut health. I've been hearing over the last couple of years, prove your gut health. And, I did it. Gives you more energy. It optimizes your immune system. And you don't have to take pills. You just one scoop and you're ready to go. Um, so what is this stuff? With one delicious scoop of Athletic Greens, you're absorbing 75 high quality vitamin, minerals, whole food source superfoods, probiotics, adaptogens to help you start your day right. This special blend of ingredients supports your gut health, your nervous system, your immune system, and your energy recovery, focus, and aging. Like I said, I use this all the time. And the best thing for everybody is that it is lifestyle friendly, whether you eat keto, paleo, vegan, dairy free, or gluten free. This is for you. And it contains less than 1 gram of sugar, no GMOs, no nasty chemicals or artificial anything, while still tasting good. And the best part, I mean, it gets better and better, is that it costs you less than $3 a day. You're investing in your health, and it's cheaper than your cold brew habit. So jump on this right now because they got a great deal. So great deal going right now. So right now it's time to reclaim your health and arm your immune system with the convenient daily nutrition. It's just one scoop in a cup of water every day. That's it. No need for a million different pills and supplements to look out for your health. To make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1 year supply of immune supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is go ahead and visit athleticgreens.com/NHL network. Again, that's athleticgreens.com/NHL network to take ownership over your health and to pick up your ultimate daily nutritional insurance. So I just want to thank everybody for making us your first listen of the day. And if you haven't already, go ahead and like and subscribe to the podcast. We are available wherever podcasts are distributed. So go ahead and do that. Go ahead and check out our social media pages as well at LO_Lightning on Twitter, as well as Locked_Lightning on Instagram. Like I said, subscribe to the pod on YouTube. Subscribe to us on any audio platform you choose to use. And hit me up on Twitter at DenkyDenk, DenkyDenk. Love hearing from all of you, conversing with you. Love hearing all your questions as well, whether it be in-game, after-game, or post-game. So if you're watching us on YouTube, on the ticker below, go ahead, jot down all that information, follow us everywhere. It really helps the podcast grow. And tell your friends, tell your family. One of the best gifts you could give them is this podcast in terms of listening. As we continue to follow the Lightning as they continue to get it to, or attempt to get it together. And I really think that we've been talking quite a bit on this podcast over the last couple episodes about it might be time for Cooper to kind of like shake it up a little bit. And I'm not saying put Cooch on the third line, shake it up. I think the third line, Hagel is starting to come on. I thought Hagel on the first line would point Cooch. It's really starting to you're starting to see it those guys really gel together very well. I think that Hagel, the last game, or just in general over the last couple of games, ever since Cooper has moved them up to the first line, I thought that you're starting to see Hagel kind of have spurts of what we expected him to have last year when he was traded here. So hopefully we could start to see, that Brandon Hagel, not, as much as I loved, and I'm going to sit here real quick and say, Brandon Hagel, what he was in the playoffs last year, what he did, um, from his time coming to Tampa, he was great. He adapted, and that's what you want to see. He wasn't this scorer that you saw with Chicago. He wasn't the 21 game score, 21 goal scorer that we saw with Chicago. But you know what? He adapted. He molded his game to fit the needs of the team and what he was able to do at that point in time. But no, you're starting to see Hagel really come on, and I think maybe playing with Point and Cooch, and that allows him to that just allows his team in general to spread out the ice and be a little bit more creative. I'm not saying Stamkos is a player that holds them back, but I feel like with Stamkos, and we've spoken about this on the pod, that when Stamkos is on the ice, especially with Point and Cooch, I feel like the offense runs through him. And I always compare it to what Washington has done for years with Ovechkin, where you're just all you're really doing is just setting up for the one timer from the circle. And we've seen it in losses, we've seen it in wins. Teams know it's coming, and the Lightning, ever a creature of habit, just continue to go back to it. Yes, it works, but you shouldn't be trying to go back to it 3, 4 times in a row, which they do. And subbing Hagel out, subbing Stamkos out in that situation for Hagel on the wing, I think that's great. I think that allows not only to get Hagel involved and kind of let him step up his offensive play and create more space, like I said on the ice, not only for him but for all the players on the ice at that time. It allows Point and Cooch to kind of do their own thing without kind of hurting any other player on the ice. Uh, we've spoken about how really the strength of Point's game is his speed. How really what he does is he'll really just make the other team on the ice work for it. He'll take the puck and just try and skate through 3, 4 guys down the center into the slot, which is great. Um, but now that you have Cooch on the side, and then you have Hagel on the other, you have those weapons on the side of you. You don't really have that with Stamkos on the break as much. I think we could all agree that Hagel and Point and Cooch are a faster trio than Stamkos, Point, and Cooch. And you could allow yourself, especially if you have Hedman, if you have that line plus you have Cooch and Hedman, you have two guys who could quarterback an offense, and then that allows you to kind of drop Stamkos off into that second line role with Paul and Killorn, and then eventually once Cirelli comes back, you'll have Cirelli on the second line with him and Killorn. Um, and yeah, it'll take a couple of games for Cirelli to get things going, but you're giving yourself a fresh look. You're giving other teams a fresh look, a look that they have not seen this year. Whereas, like I said on earlier pods, that the Lightning they have a game plan, and that's great, but they don't. When that doesn't work, they just continue to go back to it until they score a goal, like a oops goal, or they just it's something. Really, what I'm trying to say is it's the shakeup is the best thing for Tampa because they're allowing themselves to get different looks with different players and different combos. Now, obviously, these combos and line changes have probably been done in practice, but that goes back to my point earlier on. With Cooper saying during the press conference that time to change things up, but at the same time, if you're trying to improve on things and change things up in practice, let's see that in the game situation. So maybe something to think about. Maybe I would like to, I don't want to shake up the first line now. Like I said, I love what Hagel's doing right now. I think he had 3 points against Buffalo. Um, he had a point last night and a goal, obviously, against Edmonton. So he's starting to come on. I mean, he's had a point in his last 3 games, 2 straight games with a goal. So he's starting to pick it up. So which is great to see. But really, I think what it comes down to is the third and fourth lines. That's where the Lightning kind of drop off quite a bit, where they kind of become quiet. Yeah, that third line, they get a little hectic here and there, and I love it. I mean, Kepke was doing a lot of good things last night. I that was one of the more better games that I've seen out of him all season long. So really, I think, should Cooper play around with that? Should he put Kepke on the fourth line? I mean, it doesn't hurt your chances if you put it on there for a couple of shifts. If you throw Kepke on the wing with Maroon and Belmar, I don't have a problem with that. That gives Perry some more offensive time, and he doesn't really have to play as physical of a game on the fourth line, where he could just go into the third and kind of just get Colton going, get Nemestikov going, because I just, Nemestikov, he's still kind of trying to figure it out. Colton is just, he's struggling out there, man. He's struggling. I mean, yeah, and you could see it. I mean, that's the one thing about Colton, is that you don't have to wonder whether or not whether he's having a good time out there or not. I mean, he wears his emotions pretty bluntly. So he's struggling, and hopefully, you put Perry out there on the third line, that could shake things up, open up the ice for him, and get things going for Colton. Because you get him going, we saw what he did last year, and I firmly believe, you'll start to see a little bit more of an improvement from this team as a whole if you get Colton going, if you get Hagel going, even if you get Paul going, because I think eventually what the plan will be is, obviously, once Cirelli comes back, Kiepke is the odd man out. I think we could all agree that's going to be the more likely scenario. I can't figure that they're going to sit Nemestikov, especially after signing him. Um, so yeah, Kiepke will probably be the odd man out. Paul will go down to the third line, and then you have Colton, Nemestikov, and Paul, and then you get those two guys going on the wings with Nemestikov down the middle, which I think they'll switch out Paul for. I think Paul will be in the second, excuse me, in the center position at certain times, but I would like to see Paul out on the wing, because he has shown he can score, and he can put the puck in the back of the net and do good things offensively. So, you know, the moves are there for Jon Cooper. I just really think it's now just a matter of him maybe taking a little bit of a risk at switching some parts around. And we'll have to wait and see. Like I said, it's one thing to do it and play with things during practice. It's another to really put that to use during real game situations. So wrapping things up, like I said, the Lightning do have a tough road ahead of them, as well as, like I said, they're also sitting 2 points back of Toronto, which I think that, the way Toronto's playing, it's kind of unfortunate that Tampa is also kind of just struggling to get things going. But yeah, they need to get things going. They need to, they kind of blew their chance the other night against Edmonton, but you have opportunity to really get things going real quick, really get the momentum flowing, because they're going to need it. I mean, they have a tough road ahead of them. They got the Capitals twice, one home and away, and then you got Dallas coming up, which I don't remember off the top of my head if Jake Ottinger is still out with an injury. If that's the case, then the Lightning are pretty lucky, because if you don't know about Jake Ottinger, I think, if last year's playoffs are any indication of what kind of player he's going to be, he's going to potentially be a top 5 goalie, I think, towards the end of the season. And then you got Calgary and, Nashville, who had a bad loss the other night against Seattle. And then you got Boston, who, one of the best teams in the league. I mean, there's no doubt, ifs, ands, or buts about that. And then you got St. Louis, who's struggling, who I still think, even St. Louis, who, like I said, is struggling, not doing well. I think they've lost 7 in a row. That's still a game that I firmly believe is not even, in a bag or a guarantee for the Lightning. So they really need to buckle down. And then you got Buffalo and Boston to end out the month of November. So, not a crazy tough road to end the month, but not an easy one. And if we know anything from past experiences, and especially the other night, and even early on in the month with Ottawa, nothing is guaranteed going into the game with this Lightning team. Right now, we can't just allow ourselves to think that this team is going to go in there and do the right thing early on. Um, and I think that's what really Jon Cooper needs to hammer home over the next couple of days in practice. Other than obviously efficiency on special teams, he really just needs to hammer home with this team and emphasize, if he hasn't already, um, what they need to do from the initial puck drop. This team should be flying around 200 feet for the at least the first opening 10 minutes. I mean, especially when you're at home, that's your home ice. Just show some aggression early on. Don't allow the other team to settle in. This isn't anything new to my listeners or people watching on YouTube about this Tampa team. So really, we need to see the fruits of their labor in practice. We need to see a team. Yes, there were some good things done in this game against Edmonton, but as previously stated over the previous two episodes, there was a lot that was not done. So we need to see Tampa really respond against Washington. Like I said, they have a couple of days off they to think about this and work on things. And you know, on a scale of 1 to 5, 5 being overly optimistic and 1 being just that all hope is lost, I'm going to say a 3 is constituted in this situation. I really think Tampa really needs to prove not only to the fans and the Capitals that they're for real in terms of what kind of team they want to be, and that they still value themselves as a playoff contender. Um, but they need to show themselves that they could go out there and the fans that they could go out there that they're actually taking this seriously. Um, I'm curious what some of the player statements are going to be over the course of the next couple of days. And obviously, as those drop, some of those interviews come out, or maybe even some of the articles that will drop over the next couple of days, we will discuss those because I'm very curious as to what the overall mood is going to be with the Tampa media over the next couple of days and what they're thinking going forward. So we will talk about that as all that comes out. So in the meantime, that'll be it for this episode of Locked On Lightning, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Adam Danker. I'll talk to you on the next one.